it's time for that particular interview, and of course it's a discussion, and I'm joined by SUBA CHURCHIL coordinator, Kenya National Civil Society Center, and later on we'll be joined by KHELEF, the director Muslim for Human Rights, as we dive them directly into this particular discussion. And of course, SUBA, a lot has been happening as far as demonstrations are concerned, and this begs the question: how would you describe, the current status of demonstration in Kenya today?
I think that demonstrations are a sign that our democracy is maturing. That is not to say that the manner in which they are happening or being countered by the police,
right,
and other actors in society is the right way. Demonstrations are a critical aspect of our human rights, of the Bill of Rights in Kenya. We, as you know, adopted a new constitution way back in 2010. I think it is no longer new. And deliberately entrench the right to demonstrate or to protest and to picket and to present petitions to those in authority. And it's a right that every Kenyan is entitled to. The right to protest has within it several other rights, because in the course of exercising your right to protest, one also exercises the right to freedom of association, because it involves different people coming together to exercise that right, freedom of assembly, freedom of expression, because when you come together and there is an issue that you feel aggrieved about, then within the exercise of the right to protest, you also get to exercise your right to freedom of expression. But more importantly is that through protests, Kenyans also exercise the right to participate in the management of public affairs or in the management of societies or private associations. So within the right to protest are so many other rights, and that's why its exercise becomes very, very critical, because then people also exercise the rights to access information or to pass information, or to disseminate information based on the issues that they feel aggrieved about.
All right. Well, let's dive, KHELEF, in this discussion. Of course, you have mentioned about the right to demonstrate that is enshrined in our constitution. But you have seen a lot of things that are happening recently. We saw, that is to be precise, on Monday, of course, the burning of church, mosque, and of course, tension rising in Kibra. Of course, KHELEF, where does your rights begins and end as far as the demonstrations are concerned?
Thank you very much. When we have seen demonstrations and a bit of destruction of property, and what I can say, these things are sometimes expected. This is not something new only to Kenya. Even countries like the United States, France, the most advanced countries in the world, when they demonstrate, sometimes there's a lot of destruction. And but fortunately, you don't hear any deaths compared to Kenya, where police sometimes use live ammunition to kill demonstrators. The right to demonstrate is embedded in the Constitution, and it's very, very important aspect of our Bill of Rights. And this Bill of Rights is not there because police will decide whether to let you do it or not. This is where the police is going wrong. It is going wrong in a sense they don't let people do what they are supposed to do. There are so many. Well, to tell you the truth, I have been in demonstrations since early 90s. And I know every time when police try to interfere, that's where the problem starts. So if the police does not interfere, I don't think there will be any destruction or anything like that. So I think the police has to obey the law and the constitution.
All right. Well, Suba, when you look at the push and pull between the government, of course, and the opposition, the government at one side, on the other hand, says, there is no any demonstration that will be allowed in the country. Opposition says demonstrations are still on, and it is their right, of course, to hold demonstrations. But the push and pull, of course, is it necessary at this time, the time when we are witnessing the destruction of properties, some even looting, and even to some extent, of course, the cause of death?
Yes, I mean, when government says there'll be no demonstrations, it's completely wrong, because they are trying to create the impression that government has the capacity to grant rights. Now, rights are not granted by the state.
Okay.
Rights are inherent, and by virtue of being human, everybody has a right. And the limitations that have been imposed on the Bill of, on rights under Article 24 of the Constitution require that if there were to be any limitations on rights, then it must be done by law and in a manner that does not make it difficult for people to protest, but in a manner that only regulates.
Right.
So it is completely wrong and unlawful for government, whatever the station they have, and it's unfortunate that we saw the Inspector General of Police, who is relatively new in office, speak so emotionally, unnecessarily emotionally, about a right that he nor anybody else, not even the president, grants rights. Rights are fundamental, entitlements that anybody, as long as you are a Kenyan citizen, you'll be entitled to. In terms of the destruction of property, loss of lives, it stems from the fact that government has failed to perform its duty. It is the duty of government to respect, to protect, and fulfill the right of every Kenyan to protest. Now, when you see those things happening, it is when government fails to do what it's supposed to do, and instead begins to, to engage protesters. And you've seen it even on Monday when, the Azimio leaders went towards, Kawangware. For almost 1 hour, the people moved on and proceeded without any violence until they encountered the police.
Okay.
Even today, you saw, people moving through, the estates to the informal settlements where people are, presumed to be predisposed to violence.
Okay.
There was not even a single stone thrown, no property destroyed, no violence, until police came to stop the protests.
All right.
So protests are largely caused by the police. Otherwise, ordinary Kenyans, and you saw it in Kisumu as well, would want to protest in a manner that is peaceful and lawful as guaranteed under the Constitution.
All right. Well, Khalif, the government has the obligation and, of course, the duty to protect lives and properties. At the same time, the supporters and, of course, even the Azimio leaders, they have the right to demonstrate according to Constitution, of course. But this begs the question, where does the buck stop?
I think the buck stops with the police. Okay, when because the Constitution, it is very clear. It says you don't seek permission, but you inform the police of the intended demonstration, period. And they give you the day, 3 days before the start of that demonstration, up to 2 weeks. Okay? So the police, even before the demonstration starts, they already said there is no demonstration. Now, by saying that, you're interfering with their constitutional right to demonstrate. First. Second, this issue of security and so on and so forth, it is the work of the police. But now we hear the president, the deputy president, ministers trying to interfere in things that it's not their concern. They should have led these things to the police. Okay, now if the police have any evidence that there's a group of people who are going to cause these things, then they should arrest those people immediately. Let them take to court. But blanketly to say there will be violence, that is not right. And there is no demonstration in the history of this country. And I'll give you an example. When Raila Odinga was sworn in as People's President on 30th of January 2018, Uhuru Park, it was attended by tens of thousands of people. Police did not interfere. There was not even a single stone thrown to anywhere. So that by itself is to tell you, if there was no interference by police, people will have demonstrated and go home very peacefully.
Right.
On the 20th of this month, there were 4 countries in Africa. Okay, South Africa, Tunisia, Nigeria, and Kenya. Okay? But chaos, we only saw it here in Kenya. In South Africa, in fact, police were leading front, and the demonstrators were back. And they were walking leisurely. There's no tear gas, there was nothing, and people just demonstrated and then went home. So let us not lay the blame to where it does not belong to.
All right. Well, Suba, when you look at the demands of the Azimio la Umoja, one of them is lowering the cost of living. It's true, the cost of living is high, and something needs to be done, but at what cost?
I mean, it's the responsibility of government. You know, when you look at rights, the right to food of nutritional value and adequate quantities is under Article 43 of the Constitution.
All right.
And the Constitution says that in explaining that the government cannot, fulfill those rights under Article 43, it is upon the government to demonstrate, even including in a court of law, that there are no sufficient resources. Now we know that, during the campaigns, Kenya Kwanza, led by President William Samoei Ruto, promised to lower the cost of basic commodities within 2 weeks.
All right.
In fact, he said that the Kenya Kwanza government would lower the cost of 2 packets of maize meal to 70 shillings. We are almost 8 months after we took the oath of office. Kenyans are merely holding him to account. An impression has been created that the opposition through Azimio is like trying to extract a tooth from any of the Kenya Kwanza government officials. Mm-hmm. Far from the truth. We are merely holding the government to account, and I think Kenyans are within their rights to demand that the cost of living be made reasonably affordable for everyone. I think that some of the comments I've heard from the government officials, including from the deputy president, about handshake, are diversionary. Because where in the demands, the many demands that the opposition has placed before government and the people of Kenya, where does the handshake feature? It is diversionary. It is meant to run away from responsibility. And I think the opposition and Kenyans that have been on the street demonstrating are spot on remaining focused despite the diversionary tactics that the government is trying to put at play.
Well, KHELEF, when you look at the firm stand that the government is holding, at the same time opposition is holding, and you see at the center of it are Kenyans who, after now it's 2 days in a week, Monday and Thursday, many businesses are disrupted. Of course, many depend on those businesses for livelihood. Until when do you think this is the right time to hold dialogue between the two warring parties, at least to see if there is a solution out of this?
Let us look on both ways, okay? Kenyans are well informed, okay? When the government is talking about austerity, government is talking about debt, these, as SUBA has said, these are the promises that were given by President Ruto during the campaign. So when he told people, if I become the president, I will do ABCD, it means he has to do it. So people now say, what's happening? This guy told us he will do it within 100 days. Now, instead of lowering the price of unga, he has lowered the price of fertilizer. You see, fertilizer, it means it will take maybe a couple of months, a year, till it is matured. People are hungry. Okay. On the other side, government is overplus, is spending so much. We just heard that the president and his deputy and Mudavadi, they spent 802 million shillings buying themselves cars. Can you imagine? People cannot afford a packet of unga, and these people are just spending hundreds of millions. 802 million is a lot of money. Okay? The government is bloated. Do we really need 50 cars? Do we really need them? Okay? And every move the president and his deputy are doing now, it is focused to the next election. Because when I look at the television every time, during the time of campaign and today, you don't see any difference. Every week they are somewhere campaigning, okay, offering jobs which are not there, okay, and it costs a lot of money, taxpayers' money, okay. He took away subsidies because the government has no money. But on the other side, they spend a lot of money. People must understand in the month of December alone, the budget to State House, they spent 2.2 billion shillings in 31 days. Okay? The budget of the president, State House budget, it was 8.6 billion. That money was spent in less than 7 months. And now they have requested another 5 billion, that it takes it to over 13 billion, okay, State House budget. And people are wondering, where is this money go? Okay, there must be some accountability.
All right.
Okay, I'm very sorry to say this, but it doesn't add up at all. So people look at these things and say, wait a minute, what is going on?
Okay.
Okay, why it's only us who pay the price? The government has debt, there is no money. But on the other side, they're free to spend the way they want.
All right. Gentlemen, I'll take this because of time as you are parting short, but I want you to comment on the growing concern about the possible rising tensions. We have witnessed what happened in Kibra and, of course, the recent invasion of the Kenyatta farm. And this is something that as leaders, political leaders, religious leaders have weighed in their voice in this particular discussion. What do you read in all this, and what do you think should be the solution going forward?
I think the government needs to stick to the rule of law. Whatever happened at the farm of the Kenyatta family, a family that has so far, produced the founding father of this nation, produced the fourth president of the Republic of Kenya. Yes, people, when they are in leadership, occasionally may slide, may engage in a bit of excesses, but to invade somebody's property and engage in purely criminal acts of the kind that happened is completely abhorrent. We as civil society join the religious leaders and everybody else and other Kenyans in condemning what happened.
Right.
And we say we are of the view that, and it is in the public domain, that it was planned by people in government, facilitated by people in government, as the same policemen, same police that are now claiming they are protecting property, watched. You know, the farm is not far from the Directorate of Criminal Investigations. We have it on authority that the National Intelligence Service gave information, but the police that should have responded to the criminal acts, were, told not to act. And similar things happened, in the farm of, the Dinga's family business. We saw what happened in Kibra. Those who are not protesters burning the church and pulling down the mosque, those who are goons hired by the state, and even in Kibra in particular, they're always on the side of the police, carrying machetes and so on.
All right.
So we hope that in future, moving forward, government will ensure that the rule of law is upheld, and that the right to equality and non-discrimination before the law is enforced to the letter.
All right. But just for the record, of course, the police said they did not receive any information according to what was happening there, and as soon as they received, of course, they dispatched their teams to that area. So we'll hold the views that you've just said as your own views and not of KUTV.
Of course, they are not, but 24. It took them 24 hours to receive information.
All right. Now, KHELEF, even as we wind up this discussion, and of course, this is your parting shot. What do you read in all this, and what do you think should be the solution, of course, in quelling the possible looming tension?
I will agree with SUBA Churchill. We have one of the best constitutions in the world. I can tell you, the Bill of Rights, it's one of the best in the world, okay? But if you don't follow it and you don't follow the law, that is the problem. It will always face the problem. You see, when people are crying about price of commodities, we are told Ukraine, but that's not true, okay? These things, to do the truth, it started a couple of years ago on the contract of SGR, in which the president was part to it. This date, there was a hell of a big fraud, a very big fraud. Even when the president publicly said, I will release that contract with the Exim Bank and the Chinese government, okay? He did not, because what Murkomen presented in Parliament, it was part of that grand fraud. He only presented 160 billion, and what cost from Mombasa to Naivasha is over 600 billion. So there is something is missing here. Unless if we follow the law, unless if these institutions which are a place, they do their work independently, it will be very, very, very difficult to judge. And second thing, in 2017, in Nairobi alone, okay, around 23 people were shot dead in less than 48 hours, okay? And the current IG, he was heading the police, as head of the police of Nairobi County. Not even one person was arraigned in court. So killing people, it becomes something normal. You see, the value of life, it's not in our police service, not yet. So the police can use live bullets. Live bullets. It means aiming to kill. Even if a demonstrator throw a stone to a car, a windscreen, or anything, that thing can be replaced within 24 hours. But you can't replace life.
All right. Well, gentlemen, thank you so much for making time. Of course, your time is pretty much appreciated. That was KHELEF, that is the Director for Muslim for Human Rights, and of course, SUBA Churchill, Coordinator, Kenya National Civil Society Center. Thank you so much, gentlemen, for making time. Well, of course, we take a short break. When we come back, it's Sporty News.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.